Happy Friday and welcome back to this week's episode of Sports Corner. I'm Cole Young and we had some incredible weather this week as well as some major sporting events, so I'll get right to it. On Sunday afternoon, the Women's March Madness tournament came to a close. In the national championship game, the South Carolina Gamecocks completed the perfect 38-0 season after defeating the Iowa Hawkeyes 87-75. South Carolina became the 10th team in Division I history to complete an undefeated season, joining UConn, Baylor, Tennessee, and Texas as the only programs to achieve this monumental feat. To make this even more impressive, they did this on a season where they had 0 returning starters from last year. This is also the Gamecocks' 3rd national title in 7 years and 2nd in the last 3 years. They are now tied with Baylor and Stanford for the 3rd most championships ever. To make this year's title even sweeter, the title game victory came against Iowa, the team that eliminated them from last year's tournament. Iowa started the game red hot and jumped out to an early lead. The Hawkeyes were up by as much as 11 in the first quarter, and guess who set another record? Yep, Caitlin Clark put up the most points by a player in any quarter of a women's championship game when she dropped 18 points in just the first quarter. But South Carolina turned the tide and led the game for the entire second half, completing their 31st double-digit victory of the season. The Final Four most outstanding player, Camila Cardoso, finished with 15 points and a career-high 17 rebounds, and she is now the 5th player with at least 15 points and 15 rebounds in a championship game in the past 25 years. Cardoso is the only player from this roster that's entering the WNBA draft next season, so look for the Gamecocks to be right back in this spot next spring and continue their streak of being one of the most dominant programs in college basketball history. Caitlin Clark's historic college career has officially come to an end. She finished the championship game with 30 points, 5 assists, and 8 rebounds. She ended her collegiate career with the most points in Division I men's or women's history with 3,951. It's a very safe assumption that she will be the first overall pick in the WNBA draft, which is coming up on April 15th. The women's title game kick-started the week, and the men's national championship game followed on Monday. The highly anticipated matchup between the 2 top seeds in the tournament, Purdue and UConn, tipped off on Monday night. Both of these teams dominated in the Final Four, and it confirmed what most knew all season, that these would be the final remaining teams. The first half of this game was a shootout, with both teams scoring back and forth in a battle of the big men. Donovan Clingan and Zach Edey were basically playing a game of one-on-one to start the game, and Edey was winning. With 8 minutes remaining in the first half, the 7'4" Purdue center already had 14 points. He was dominating in the paint and could not miss any shot he took. However, although Edey put on an incredible performance and put up a stat line of 37 points and 10 rebounds, he couldn't beat the UConn Huskies by himself. UConn sat with a 36-30 lead at halftime, and that was the last time the game would be that close. The floodgates opened in the second half, and the Huskies would go on to defeat Purdue 75-60, winning their 2nd straight national championship and becoming the first team to win back-to-back titles since Florida in 2006 and 2007. UConn guard Tristan Newton won the NCAA tournament's Most Outstanding Player Award after finishing with 20 points, 5 rebounds, and 7 assists. And this marks the 2nd time he has been UConn's best player in the championship game. Winning the 2023 title game win over San Diego State, Newton went for 19 points, 10 rebounds, and 4 assists. I talked about how dominant South Carolina was in the women's tournament this season, but the UConn men's team has an equally impressive resume. After one of the most dominant tournament runs in history last year, where UConn beat its 6 opponents by 20 points per game, they somehow were even more unbeatable this year. In their 6 tournament games this year, the Huskies won by an average margin of 23.3 points. This means that, once again, all 6 wins came by double digits, making that 12 straight tournament wins by at least 10 points. The Huskies have truly entered the category of greatest college basketball programs in history. They have now gone back-to-back for their 6th title in 26 years. Only 6 other schools have produced back-to-back men's basketball champions, and UConn is now tied for 3rd all-time with 6 championships. With head coach Dan Hurley at the helm, it seems like this trend isn't going to change anytime soon. Look for UConn to continue to be a top team year in and year out for at least the foreseeable future. Round 2 of the Masters is underway and started earlier this morning. Here's a look at the leaderboard so far. All the golfers will continue their rounds today, tomorrow, and the final round will be played on Sunday. The green jacket ceremony will take place at about 4 p.m. on Sunday afternoon, so be sure to tune in all weekend to see which champion will be crowned and enter their name into PGA history. Also continuing this weekend is more regular season baseball. And so far, I gotta say, I'm pretty surprised with the Angels. I'm sure many people around the country are in the same boat as me, and sure, they aren't by any means a top team in the league, but for a team that lost arguably the greatest baseball player of all time, have an owner that has been under constant scrutiny for never building that strong of a roster, and a pitching rotation that has never seemed to find their stride in many years, they look pretty solid. As of Wednesday, the Halos are 6-6 and are in second place in their division. And much of, if not all of the credit should go to Mike Trout. In his 14th season, the outfielder has been hitting like a younger version of himself as of late. He currently has 6 home runs, which is tied for the most in the league. However, we will have to wait and see if the Angels are able to keep up this level of play or crumble midseason like they do year in and year out. On the other end of the spectrum, the Dodgers are just dominant. They currently lead the league in pitching wins, RBIs, home runs, hits, pitching strikeouts, and a lot more. Shohei Ohtani is hitting just as good as usual, racking up doubles, home runs, and even a few triples on the season. Mookie Betts led the league in every single hitting category for a short while, but he's still top 5 across the board. If the Dodgers can continue this level of play all season, they will yet again be a World Series favorite. If you remember around this time last year, I talked about the Cincinnati Reds young superstar, Elly De La Cruz. De La Cruz made a name for himself with his incredible batting talent and his ability to run the bases, including stealing 3 bases at once last season. This year, he achieved another impossible feat. In a 10-8 victory over Milwaukee earlier this week, the lefty crushed a 450-foot home run to dead center. Later, this time batting right-handed, De La Cruz hit a line drive to shallow center. The ball rolled to the fence, and it eventually turned into an inside-the-park home run. He became the first player in history with a 450-plus foot home run and an inside-the-park home run in the same game. According to Opta Stats, the 22-year-old switch-hitting shortstop also became the first player in history to homer from both sides of the plate, hit homers both over the fence and inside the park, score at least 4 runs, and steal a base in the same game. Elly De La Cruz is beyond electric to watch and brings some much-needed entertainment to the MLB. Hopefully, he'll continue breaking and setting weird records and setting new standards for years to come. Last week, the inaugural season of the UFL kicked off. It's surprisingly provided some pretty entertaining and good football. Currently, the San Antonio Brahmas and the Birmingham Stallions each sit on top of the league, both with 2-0 records. A while back, I mentioned how leagues like this are good for the NFL because they can test out rule changes and other wrinkles to the game, but also because players that might have fizzled out of the NFL or never got a chance get a chance to showcase their talents and possibly earn a spot on an NFL team. No player has made more of their opportunity than Michigan Panthers kicker Jake Bates. Bates kicked a 62-yard field goal for the Panthers on Sunday in a 20-13 loss at home to Birmingham. The booming kick came 1 week after Bates hit a 64-yard game winner against the St. Louis Battlehawks. To put that in perspective, only one NFL kicker hit a 62-yard field goal last season. Nobody made a kick from a further distance. Baltimore Ravens kicker Justin Tucker still holds the NFL record with a 66-yard field goal made against the Lions in 2021, meaning Bates' 64-yarder last week would be the second longest made kick in NFL history. Performances like that will draw attention from NFL teams, and apparently the Detroit Lions have already expressed their interest in Jake Bates. Between the Masters, the MLB, the UFL, and the end of the NBA and NHL season, it's a great time of year for sports. The NBA play-in tournament tips off next Wednesday, so be sure to tune in to the final games this weekend to see which teams can clinch a last-second spot. I'll be off air next Friday as I'll be on vacation, so be sure to come right back in 2 weeks for all the sports news, updates, and highlights. I'm Cole Young. Have a great weekend. I'll see you next time.